The iconic wireframe wormhole effect. Armed with nothing but Three.js and some free time, we're about to embark on an adventure through code. Let's bend the very fabric of virtual space with our bare coding skills, from animating cameras to dance along a predestined path to summoning the unreal glow effect. So grab your flamin' hot Cheetos and a cup of decaf coffee and join me on this interdimensional jaunt through the wireframe wormholes of Three.js. This is what we're building. We're going to build it in a few different steps, starting with loading the path data and creating a spline from that. A spline is just a representation of a line in 3D space. And this one, as you can see, kind of snakes and curves around in an interesting way. And we'll use that as the basis for tube geometry. We'll then add an edges geometry to get this look that you see on screen now, where there are fewer lines in the tube, in the wireframe. After we've done that, we'll add in some boxes, just so there's something in our path that we're flying past. And lastly, we'll add a glow effect to give it even more of that retro look that I love. Let's jump into it, starting from here. Just the basic boilerplate. Let's just go over what that is. Got our imports at the top. I'm importing the orbit controls as well, so I can kind of drag and move around. We set up our scene with our boilerplate, the camera, and the renderer. And I have a cube here. I'm going to pull that cube out. No longer need that. And save it. Now we have an empty scene. Let's load in our path data. I'm going to import spline from spline.js. Let's look at what's inside of spline.js. Here at the top is the curve path. Just a collection of 3 floating points per vertex. So I think there's like, what do you think? Like 35 vertices there that represent this path that's kind of winding through space. I'll load it up and show you. Before I do though, we take those points and we convert them to 3 vector 3s, and that will be the basis for this Catmull-Rom curve, which is really handy. It allows us to interpolate smoothly between those points. And then we return that so that it's loaded in here. Console.log spline. This is what the data looks like. Whoops. Here it is. And it's got these 37 points. First thing, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to ask GitHub Copilot to create a line geometry from the spline. It's going to get 100 points, then create a new buffer geometry and set the vertices for that from the points. Create a new line basic material and make it red. Create a new line from that geometry and material and add it to the scene. I thought it was red, it was really green. And here is what that line looks like. Kind of like a crazy roller coaster or something, just floating in space. Cool. Let's comment out that line. And now let's create a tube geometry in the same way. So we'll create the geometry, passing in the spline, defining the number of divisions along the length. The radius is this value here. There's the number of divisions along that radius, the radial divisions, and then finally, is it closed or not? That's true. A tube material. We'll use a mesh standard material to start with. The color will be, how about we'll make it an off blue color, kind of like a baby blue color. Make it double-sided because we're in the inside of this tube eventually, and make it wireframe. Oh, and then add it to the scene. Oh, actually create a mesh and then add it to the scene. So the tube is going to be a new mesh with the tube geometry and tube mat, and we'll add that tube to the scene. Great. There is our tube geometry. And let's see. I just want to see if it isn't double-sided, if I go inside, can I still... Yeah, I can still see it because it's wireframe. This will be important to have it double-sided if it weren't wireframe, right? Because I'll go inside and there's just nothing in there. Let's make it double-sided again. Now, there's this interior of the tube. That's kind of what I want. Kind of doesn't matter though. I'm just going to leave it wireframe. Here's why. I'm going to create an edges geometry too. Actually, let's fly through first and then create the edges geometry. To do the fly through, I want to create a function, update camera. This is going to, it's going to progress along that curve that we created a moment ago. And there it is. Thanks, GitHub Copilot. Now, instead of using time, though, or date.now, I'm going to use t that I pass in here. Update camera. And pass in t. I don't know if this is more efficient or less. It's just a convention I'm used to doing. What just happened here? Every time I call this request animation frame, it's going to pass in a timestamp. For the first time I call it though, I'm giving it a default value of 0. Then I'll pass that timestamp into the update camera method. I'll reduce it by this, what is this, like a 1/10,000th or 1/20,000th or something? I don't know. I'm going to grab a point along that spline. The point needs to be between 0 and 1. This modulo operator is going to give us the remainder of dividing by this number here. So let's say time is 10 and we divide by 20, we get 0.5. It's only going to give me the remainder using this operator. And then I divide that by the loop time. Hang on, I tell the camera to move to that position and look at this position, which is slightly ahead, like so. And now we're not animating because it's too slow. Let's move it a little bit faster and a little bit faster. And if I chop this down, it should go twice as fast. So that's the core of this tutorial, is creating a tube and then attaching a camera to a path inside of that tube and moving along. It's still moving kind of slowly, isn't it? That's a little bit better. Is that less clear? I think it should be that. Let's move it a little bit faster. So I want to modify the look of this wireframe. Right now we're seeing every single triangle, and instead I only want to see some triangles, like remove those diagonals if possible. And to do that, I also want to change that. Right now I'm getting this shaded effect. Let's change the lighting first. Hang on a second. Before I do the edges, I'm going to take off that hemisphere light, and everything disappears because there's no light in the scene now. And this material, I'll make a mesh basic material. Boom, now everything's back and there's no shading at all. And let's add some fog to the scene. This fog X2 is the way to go. The color of the fog and this, I don't know what is this? Can you give me a hint here of what that is? It's the density. Okay, but here's how it looks. I just love this effect. Edges geometry. This is what that looks like. Create edges geometry. We'll create an edge geometry. What is this value here? 0.2. I think this is like a threshold. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Const lines. There's the line material I'll use for the edges geometry. Let's make it white the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then create the line 2 from line segments. Why is that line 2? Oh, because I'm already using the line up here. How about tube lines? And then lastly, let's scene.add tube lines. That's not what I expected. Edges geometry. I'm using the edges and the mat. Let's hide our wireframe for a second. Yeah, that's not at all what I expected. Oh, I bet it's because of this threshold. It's not. Shoot. I'm going to have to look at the previous example because this is weird and I don't understand what's happening. Edges geometry. Let's have a look. So here, where's my edges? I don't know. Oh, here it is. I'm using 0.2, see a line material and line segments, and then adding that line. Oh, interesting. It looks identical, doesn't it? Edges, geometry. That's the difference there, is this tube geometry. It's not different though, it's the same. Line material, line basic material, line segments. Huh, I wonder why it looks so crappy. Why does it look so crappy? 0.1, 1.0. Oh, that's really odd. I don't understand. Hang on a second. What if I just pull back? Oh, and let's turn off the fog for a moment. See what's happening. Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. That's just weird. That's just weird. Geometry. Oh. Oh my god. Alright. So here's what I did wrong. I passed in the line as the basis for the edges geometry instead of passing the tube. Duh. Let's do that instead. Tube geo. I think this will look better. Yeah. And then update the camera again. Yeah, that's what I was expecting to see. Let's turn back on the fog. Now our wireframe wormhole has a different look and feel. I really like it. Let's add a bunch of boxes. What we're going to do is, using that path, we'll traverse the path, move along the path, and create boxes in it and put them on the path, but offset a little bit. So they're not right in the middle, but kind of on the side. Well, let's see here. We'll do it below all the tubes and edges, right above update camera. Let's define the number of boxes, which will be 45 or 55, slightly more. And we'll do a for loop. Actually, I like that size as well. Now, box geometry, thank you. That's the box material. I'm not going to use that because the box is going to be a box helper. So for let I equal 0, while I is less than num boxes, I plus equals 1. We want a box helper. Are you giving me a box helper here? No, you're not. You're giving me a box mat and a box. Oh, I guess I need that for the box helper. Here's the material in the box. No mystery there. I'm defining the box geometry outside of the for loop because I don't think I need to redefine it each time. This might look familiar. We're grabbing a point along, or I divided by num boxes, so all along the point, evenly spaced, but then offsetting it slightly. Again, using this modulo 1 to get a number between 0 and 1. Now we are going to grab a position along that point and then set the offset a little bit of randomness and then set the box position there. Also a little bit of random rotation and then add the box. We're using basic material, so we should see it just fine. There are those boxes. Const box, or just helper. Helper equals new 3.box helper, and we'll make it yellow. And scene.add helper. So, oh yeah, isn't that interesting? It's not rotated. Can I rotate the box helper? Helper dot rotation dot set. I can't see. Thank you. Does that work? It doesn't work. I guess you can't rotate those box helpers. That's too bad. I could use edges geometry. Sucka. Let's do that. We'll need a material and line segments, and then it's just a lot more lines of code than the helper. You know what I'm saying? I could define this line mat outside, but I kind of want the color to change each time. And instead of tube lines, this is box lines. Hang on. Box lines. Format that. Oh, it blew up. Why did it blow up? Because I'm using this tube geometry. I need to use the box geometry. And that should do it. It didn't do it. Did I define color? Can I just make it yellow for now? Okay. I'm not seeing my box lines. Oh, I need to set the position, right? And the rotation. Box lines. So there's the position and then the rotation. Oh, isn't that interesting? Box lines. There. And now get rid of the box. And now we just have the lines. And we have this nice rotation too. Cool. Last step, to add the glow. I do love the glow. I'm going to just copy and paste the Unreal glow effect from my previous example here. And along with it, I need to copy and paste the effects composer and this render pass as well. I wonder if I really need that render pass or render pass. Let's have a look. Here, before I define the geometry of my scene, I'll just paste in this post-processing, where I'll create the render scene, which is the equivalent of what you're seeing now, just the render. And this bloom pass, that's where the magic happens. It's the width and the height of the screen. I actually don't know what all these params are. These two are the ones I play with the most. And create a new effects composer and add it, and that composer will replace our renderer here. And then we get that glowy effect. Maybe we want to change the color of the lines on our tube, on our edges. Right now they're white. We could make them red. Oh, that didn't work. Because I'm not showing the tube anymore. I don't think I need this tube or the tube mat. Are you using the tube mat for anything? I'm just using the geometry now. And this is the color that I want to change. How's that look? Pretty cool. I like this effect where each box has a different color. Let's do it like this, where I define the color. Whoops. Const color is equal to a new color, and I'm looping here. P is the position along the spline, so it's going to give you values between 0 and 1 for the hue based on P, starting at red and progressing all the way past purple back to red again as you traverse. And this is what that looks like. I could make it go backwards. 1.0 oh, that's really weird. 1.0 minus, so it'll start at red and go to purple and cycle through blue and green before it gets back. And should we really crank up the speed? Let's double the speed. Whoosh. Cool. I encourage you to use what we've created here as the basis for your own explorations and your own variations. Use different geometries inside of the tube. Instead of just boxes, load in some models or use other primitives or animate things. Load an animated model and move it along the spline as well. Also experiment with different looks and feels for the tube geometry. You could use a different type of a shader so that it had flat shading, it's all faceted, and you could use lights inside of there for a cool effect. You could even color the vertex of the vertices of the geometry. That might look really cool as well. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. As always, please leave a comment if there's something you'd like to see or if you have a question. I'd love to hear from you. And thanks. See you next time.